Watch right now on the Front News Project. The collapse of Russian aviation. In just one day, Russia lost a Su-34 and an An-26 in Crimea. And this is just the beginning. Exclusive footage. What are mid-strikes Ukrainian style? You have to see this. The enemy is really having a hard time. And also general mobilization in Russia. When might Putin take this step? Fiery, hot, and blazing footage from the front line. Watch right now. Greetings, I'm here with you, Vladimir Timoshenko, and let's get straight to the main topic. The collapse of Russian aviation. On March 31st, it became known that Russia lost another Su-34 fighter bomber. Russian public channels reported that this happened while repelling an attack by Ukrainian UAVs. According to preliminary information, the pilot of the aircraft was killed. On the same day, it became known that an An-26 plane carrying passengers crashed in Crimea. It is reported that 29 people on board died. According to media reports, the cause of the crash was that the plane hit a cliff. Here are the details.
A black day for Russian aviation. Putin is in a panic. In just one day, the Russians lost a Su-34 and an An-26 aircraft.
The transport component of Russian aviation today looks extremely feeble. Most of it consists of Soviet-era planes that have long since exhausted their service life.
A Russian military transport plane, the An-26, crashed while flying over occupied Crimea. According to official information, the plane crashed into a cliff and the cause of the crash was technical malfunctions. As a result of the air disaster, 29 people died.
These are aircraft that are worn out in terms of service life, age, characteristics, and all power units. Worn out planes that Russia tried to replace with the IL-112. They had such a project, but it turned out to be a complete failure.
The An-26 transport aircraft remains a key link in the logistics of the Russian armed forces. This Soviet twin-engine plane allows for loading equipment and cargo both directly from the ground and from the back of a vehicle. The An-26 is designed to carry more than 5,000 kilograms of cargo, transport 30 to 40 paratroopers, or evacuate 24 wounded on stretchers.
Russia is critically dependent on aircraft like the An-24 and An-26. As of today, Russia has no replacement for the An-24 and An-26, essentially. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, it has lost the ability to renew this fleet. These aircraft were manufactured by Ukraine. They were designed by the Antonov Design Bureau and produced by Ukraine. The fleet of An-26 and An-24 aircraft that Russia still has exhausted its service life. These planes are now extremely unreliable because they are severely worn out, and at the same time, the Russian military cannot afford to carry out proper, adequate repairs in Russia. On
that same day, Russian aviation lost another Su-34. It is known that the pilot of the aircraft was killed. The cost of a single fighter jet is about $50 million.
The loss of each such aircraft is, without a doubt, not only a financial blow to the Russian army, but also a blow to its combat capability. According to
one version, the Su-34 may have been hit while trying to repel an attack by Ukrainian drones, but neither the Russian Ministry of Defense nor state media reported the crash of the aircraft.
The first reason is that it was indeed shot down, destroyed either by Ukrainian air defense systems or by Ukrainian aviation. Therefore, such effectiveness, it's unknown what kind of missile, what type of aircraft, or under what conditions, but it already puts the use of these aircraft at risk. The Su-34s in their current classic role, that is, as bomb carriers. Or perhaps there is a second reason. Why is the loss of the Su-34 being kept quiet? It's a tragic incident of friendly fire. This aircraft could have been accidentally targeted and shot down by an air defense system operating in a panicked, currently extremely stressed state by one of the Russian military air defense units.
The Su-34 is a supersonic, two-seat bomber that serves as the main strike force of the Russian Federation in the war against Ukraine. The aircraft is capable of operating around the clock, striking targets on land and at sea with high-precision missiles and bombs.
At the time of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Russian occupiers had about 120 of these aircraft. Today, there are about 80 combat-ready units. And that's despite the fact that over the course of a year, Russia is able to produce roughly 8 to 11 units of such aircraft. That is, roughly speaking, every month or month and a half, they fully assemble one new Su-34 aircraft. Overall losses, of course, are very high for these aircraft. Since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, they were especially actively shot down in the first days of the invasion.
A series of accidents indicates that the Russian Federation's aircraft fleet is operating at the limits of its capabilities. The number of incidents is increasing not only because of combat losses, but also due to an internal technical collapse of the maintenance system. Simply put, this is happening because the resources of Russian aviation are being depleted.
Due to technical and technological degradation, Russia cannot afford it, not to mention the creation of a new type of aircraft that would meet all modern needs and challenges. They can't even carry out qualified repairs on this equipment, which leads to regular disasters and various emergencies.
Russian aviation won't collapse overnight, but it is gradually falling apart. This is a process of structural collapse, where each new flight becomes increasingly risky due to a combination of technical and personnel problems.
And now, an analysis of the operational situation on the blazing Pokrovsk front line. Fierce fighting continues. Since the beginning of the day, the occupiers have tried 36 times to push our soldiers out of their positions in the Pokrovsk direction, in the areas of the settlements of Rodinske, Pokrovsk, Hraishain, Kotlain, Udakhna, Muravka, Molodetska, and Filia, and toward the settlements of Beletskaya, Shevchenko, Nova Podhorodnaya, and Nova Pavlovka. 7 combat clashes are still ongoing. The Security Service of Ukraine. The war has changed in such a way that this special service has now become not only a powerful counterintelligence center, but also a formidable combat unit which, by the way, is holding back the offensive in Donbass. Its striking force is the Special Operations Center Alpha. How many fighters are in Alpha is a state secret. But by law, there can be no more than 10,000 of them. That's like a full-fledged brigade. And now Alpha is breaking records for the effectiveness of drone operations. And for the first time, you will see how long-range middle strikes are carried out. Exclusive footage in the report by TSN military correspondent Andriy Tsaplienko. Let's watch. War is money. To make war unprofitable for the Kremlin. That is the goal of Alpha's commander.
Impacting the economy is the first thing that can force our enemy to sit down at the negotiating table.
The Alpha Special Operations Center of the Security Service of Ukraine is the undisputed reigning champion at systematically incinerating Russian military budgets.
If we speak in numbers, for the year 2025, the Special Operations Center, as part of the Security Service of Ukraine, has inflicted losses on the enemy amounting to approximately $24.2 billion.
And now we'll show you how this works. The Pokrovsk area. Here, the enemy is once again advancing and burning Ukrainian logistics wherever they can reach. Every day, more and more vehicles are burned. Here's a strike that hit the armored vehicle driving ahead of our transport. Heading out to a position is always a lottery. Why? Here's the answer. This is the vehicle that was just burned right in front of us. But the Alpha unit tries to carefully plan every trip, taking all possible factors into account. Time, weather, the intensity of enemy drones. Perhaps this approach to planning is exactly what sets the Alpha fighters apart. Alpha, as a rescue team, approaches the area comprehensively, studies the threat, and tries to quickly find ways to eliminate it. We made it to the very guys who were actually covering us on the road. Here, the special forces operate on air defense tasks, shooting down extremely dangerous Russian drones like the Molniya or even Shaheds.
Right now you can see that the enemy's electronic warfare systems have detected the Molniya.
The Molniya carries an anti-tank mine. The Alpha Special Forces are already monitoring the flight of this Molniya by several parameters. One of them is intercepting the onboard video. Right now we are seeing video from the Molniya's onboard camera.
This is an enemy Molniya.
We wouldn't want to see ourselves and our position on this screen. The FPV is already ready for interception.
This is an explosive device, C4, 150 to 200 grams. That's enough to destroy the Molniya.
In a month, Alpha shoots down up to 300 Molniyas. Here they've taken down one and another one. The Russians constantly change their tactics, but only a few of their drones manage to break through this aerial barrier.
Out of these 30 to 40 drones that are launched, our drones shoot down 80%.
If you let a drone through, it's 20 pull-ups in a bulletproof vest. Say what you will, but that's an effective incentive not to miss. It's tough when Shaheds come in swarms.
There were times when there were 20 to 30 Shaheds during massive launches.
Interceptor drones are launched to hunt Shaheds. By the way, these unconventional FPVs have really caught the interest of the Persian Gulf countries.
It works in a very interesting way. It operates like an FPV. It takes off under full manual control. There's no difference at all. Then using the appropriate button, you change the camera angle. We switch the drone into missile mode.
The secret know-how isn't the drone itself, but the trained operator who can hit a drone at speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour. So, how many Shaheeds have you shot down?
For this rotation, well, for the most recent period, considering there are very few of them now, it's about 10.
And now we move to the Alexandrovsk direction of the front. The enemy is becoming more ferocious here as well. In the Alexandrovsk direction, the aggressor launched 18 assaults in the areas of the settlements of Alexandrogorod, Sekhnevoy, Voronoy, Krasnogorska, and towards the settlements of Ivanovka, Andreevka, Klevtsova, Sosnovka, and Stepovo. Vishnevo and Verbovo as well. At present, 5 combat engagements are ongoing. And here is another highly illustrative story. In the 5th year of the Great War, Russia is having problems with army recruitment. The Kremlin may resort to forced mobilization. This is reported by the Institute for the Study of War, Abram. Peskov, of course, denies everything, but it seems this only confirms that a general mobilization in the swamps will indeed begin. Details in our report.
While the Kremlin dictator from his cozy office tells stories about how Russians are voluntarily lining up to go to war.
Our guys are going voluntarily. They're coming on their own. On their side, there are 30,000. They're rounding people up now, right? But for us, 50,000 to 60,000 a month come on their own.
At the front, Russian soldiers cursed the day because some were lured by money but ended up with nothing, while others were simply deceived.
I realized that I was just cheated.
And there are hundreds, maybe thousands of such stories. The number of those willing to die for Putin is getting smaller and smaller. The Kremlin is having serious problems with army recruitment.
Not everyone in the Russian Federation is now willing to sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense, even when offered a one-time payment of more than 3 to 3.5 million rubles or more. And even knowing that they would receive a high monthly salary, the number of those willing is getting smaller and smaller. That is, if before there really were enough of them, now even those who are eager to make money, blood money. And at first glance, the seemingly easy way to get several million rubles just for signing a piece of paper, even those people are becoming fewer and fewer.
Everyone who is willing to fight for money has already signed contracts and the state's resources. To further increase bonuses, the growth of social payments is being exhausted. And the same goes for benefits. This only confirms it. The recruitment rate is rapidly falling, and the Kremlin is being forced to look for new ways to keep people in the army. By
the end of 2025, beginning of 2026, the average mobilization rate across Russia per month is 20 to 22,000. This is roughly the figure for December, January, and February, respectively, of 2025 to 2026. In such conditions, it is very difficult not only to compensate for losses, but even to increase personnel. And
in Russia, there is increasing criticism regarding the failure of the campaign to attract volunteers, particularly to the drone units.
After all, these individuals are far from being just your typical average Russian citizens who come in off the street and sign contracts. These are people who should have certain, at least some basic skills. And I'll go further. They need to have certain levels of intelligence. In reality, you can rarely, if ever, simply transform an ordinary infantry assault trooper or a basic conscript into an exceptionally skilled and technically proficient drone operator overnight.
According to the Institute for the Study of War, potential contract soldiers are refusing to sign documents because of the risk of being subsequently transferred to assault infantry units.
There have been repeated cases where tank operators, artillerymen, and drone pilots were actually sent into assaults. Last year, there was even an outrageous case when 2 fairly well-known members of the drone forces, many of the Russian military occupation forces, were frequently and systematically sent to their certain deaths in dangerous frontline assault units.
The Kremlin is unable to replenish its losses, and soon there simply won't be any soldiers left. Their only option is to force people to the front. But for Russian society, this is a red line that could lead to a serious social explosion.
If Russia is unable to somehow increase the level of voluntary mobilization in the near future, it will be forced to move to a general mobilization, possibly in some kind of hybrid format. They will carry out this process in a hybrid way, very much in the same way as back in 2022, when a general mobilization was officially organized, but was called partial. It was used for 3 months, but at the same time,
According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and Western sources, Russian losses in 2026 exceed the capacity for replenishment, reaching up to 45,000 people per month. Russia is losing more soldiers than it is mobilizing, which forces it to involve.
there are many people visiting from various different countries all around the world who are often referred to as international visitors or foreigners. Voluntary mobilizations. These losses are compensated for by other means. For example, by recruiting in third world countries in Africa, Cuba, Latin America, and Central Asia. In other words, Russia is now trying as much as possible to catalyze recruitment campaigns outside the Russian Federation.
Putin has already long lost this war, but continues to hold on with all his might and display his strength. Only forced mobilization is unlikely to help him now. Dissatisfaction among citizens in Russia is growing more and more.
Now let's analyze the situation on the Konstantinovka front line. Putin's army is acting true to form here as well. On the Konstantinovka front, the invaders carried out 9 attacks near the settlements of Konstantinovka, Klebanbek, Pleshchevka, Rusinyar, Sofievka, and Novopavlovka. One battle is still ongoing. They return from the front and start killing, robbing, and raping civilians. In Russia, there has been a sharp increase in serious crimes committed by veterans of the so-called special military operation. Statistics prove that a real crime epidemic is growing in the country. More details coming soon.
A serious crime epidemic is currently expanding across Russia.
About the unique course that we, together with the People's Front, have developed especially for you. This is a course for the adaptation of veterans of special military operations.
While the Russians are trying to create adaptation courses, the military is killing more and more often. We
don't know anything. Close it from the public. Hide nothing.
The number of murders committed by active Russian military personnel outside the combat zone has been increasing with each year of the full-scale war.
She sits there and says, I'm going to leave him. Yeah? How are you going to leave him? How can you leave a person who gave his life for his homeland?
Sergei, if you're a hero over there, am I supposed to kiss your feet while you torment me and my child?
Kiss my feet.
I went to give... In 2025, the number of cases under the article murder in just 1 year increased by 1.5 times and by 16 times since 2022. Literally.
I carried the body for about 10 meters, put it down, turned around and left.
Journalists analyzed criminal cases submitted to 108 garrison military courts. The analysis did not include appellate and cassation instances, nor the occupied territories of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson regions. The occupation administrations, military bodies, and courts established there do not publish information about the cases they consider. The study covered the period from 2018 to 2025. I
show my hand and say, let's go outside and talk there. And that's it, and immediately, bang, bang, gunfire. I even gave first aid myself.
The year 2026 in Russia began with new crimes. Irkutsk law enforcement officers stood outside the door of the SVO soldier for 6 hours while he held hostages and killed a kidnapped woman.
Being sent to war became a new way for him to avoid responsibility for his crime. After a few months at the front, Michurin was wounded and ended up in a hospital. He didn't want to return to his unit and went AWOL. It was during this period that he committed a new murder. One of the most brutal crimes to have occurred in Irkutsk in recent years.
Most often, active military personnel commit murders while drunk.
The gentleman explicitly stated during our conversation that he possessed a very strong and sincere desire to obtain exactly what he had been looking for all along.
To free Kutinsky. Warrant Officer Jivichenko lined up 12 contract soldiers from the military unit and started shooting at them with a pistol.
On the way to the destination, the warrant officer drank about 2 bottles of vodka. He got out of the car with a Makarov pistol in his hand. He began accusing the soldiers who had lined up to receive their assignments of being unwilling to participate in the special operation. He first fired into the ground and then opened fire on his subordinates. Some of the group managed to escape, but one soldier was hit in the chest and abdomen by bullets. He died on the spot and another was wounded in the thigh.
And in his hometown, the young man killed by the warrant officer was made into a hero, with people saying he died in battle. Or, for example, one of the occupiers, after committing a murder right at the front, claimed that it wasn't him but Ukrainian saboteurs who did it.
Arkhangelski was drinking vodka with one of his fellow soldiers. A quarrel broke out between them, and as a result, Arkhangelski fired a burst from his assault rifle at his drinking companion. Only one of the 3 bullets hit his target, but it caused a fatal wound. To cover up the crime, Arkhangelski claimed that the unit had been attacked by a Ukrainian sabotage group. However, he was unable to prove this version and ended up turning himself in.
According to the data studied, in only 17% of cases did soldiers kill their fellow servicemen. Much more often, the heroes of the special military operation kill friends, acquaintances, or even random civilians in regions of the Russian Federation. This soldier killed his girlfriend during an argument. He stabbed her with a knife he had on him in a forested area.
The woman's body was found buried in the ground 17 meters from the highway. Forensic experts determined that the soldier stabbed her 42 times. Most of the wounds were to the chest area.
The medical examination concluded that the soldier has an emotionally unstable personality disorder, which is explained by the consequences of participating in combat operations. In addition to alcohol, Russian soldiers are accused of rape and violent sexual acts. There was a sharp increase in such cases in 2025. The courts received 248 cases under both articles at once. What is truly frightening is that the occupiers commit such crimes even in the occupied territories of Ukraine.
They started shooting at the soldiers, who were very drunk. We were shouting that we are civilians, peaceful residents. They didn't start mocking my husband. They started shooting above his head, then started shooting at his legs. It's very hard to remember all of this. I don't know how long it lasted. I understood that if I tried to resist in any way, they would just shoot me. I had to survive for my daughter's sake.
Another story, which was nevertheless confirmed by Russian officials, took place in September 2025 in the city of Yanakiev, located in the occupied part of Donetsk region. 9-year-old Katya went out for a walk and never came back.
The locals searched for the child for 2 days. Regional social media pages wrote about it. As a result, a 32-year-old native of Alapayevsk, Sverdlovsk region was detained. Alexei Chumachenko. In 2021, he was convicted of rape. However, he was later released and took part in the SVO.
Psychopaths, rapists, and murderers hide behind their participation in Putin's SVO.
I want to say that the special military operations are proceeding strictly according to schedule.
After returning from the front, these soldiers commit crimes because they feel they can act with impunity. And with each passing year, there are more and more of them. And this is not the end yet. Russia will be completely drowned in blood by its own hands.
Well then, now let's discuss the operational situation on the Lyman front. The bloody rampage of the enemy army continues, and here. On the Lyman front, Ukrainian soldiers repelled 3 attempts by the invaders to advance toward populated areas. Nadezhda and Drobyshevo. 2 clashes are still ongoing.
And now attention, robots at the front. How do ground drones help Ukrainian defenders fight? These surprises on wheels have long become a real nightmare for the enemy. All the details are in the exclusive report by TSN military correspondent Andriy Tsaplienko.
2 years ago, the security service of Ukraine decided to create a unit of ground robots. At first, kamikaze robots with mines.
We're still a special unit. We were looking, so to speak, for gaps in the enemy's defenses where we could make use of them.
These kinds of surprises on wheels quietly sneak up to enemy fortifications, make their way inside shelters, and effectively destroy them. But war is not about special effects, it's about results. Sometimes they're inconspicuous but strategically important. So the robotic units of Alpha took over logistics near Pokrovsk.
After we developed the kamikaze direction, we realized we needed to scale up, and we saw the scaling. That's logistics.
The Alpha group rolls out a wheeled drone to the starting point. Cargo, ammunition for aerial drones. Enemy FPVs are nearby.
Quiet. What kind of...
Life is this. Everyone understands what could happen if a strike is accurate.
Relax. Relax. Thunder, thunder, thunder.
But the mission must be accomplished. At the command post, they're triangulating. The FPV moved on, but the crew has only a few seconds to launch the self-propelled platform because a so-called network Shahed is nearby.
A network Shahed is the kind of Shahed that can act as a relay, but primarily serves as a mothership that drops 2 FPVs.
Despite its effectiveness in the air, the unmanned vehicle reaches the Ukrainian drone operators without incident. This means that thanks to the cooperation between units, Alpha will hold its positions.
Here's another important story: the unit and the manufacturer. There needs to be synergy because often the manufacturer goes in the wrong direction. Sometimes thinking something is needed, they start building some UAVs, but by the time they're finalized, they're already outdated. We are interested in making sure the enemy doesn't have time to adapt to our tools.
Here's one of those tools. An armed machine gun. The Alpha robot has already engaged in combat with the occupiers. It crossed quietly and left quietly, eliminating a small assault group. This successful experience will definitely be scaled up.
We definitely don't keep it there as something precious. Not in some chest for a rainy day, but for those pilots who can deliver results today, they are fully engaged in carrying out current tasks on the front line of combat.
One of these unique pilots recently received the Hero Star. He does what seems impossible. With an FPV drone, he reaches places no one else can, more than 60 kilometers deep into enemy territory. We
made it. The farthest strike was at 69 kilometers. 2 heavy flamethrower systems TOS Su-34, a BMPT Terminator, and about 20 MLRs were destroyed.
The distance at which this operator can reach Russian equipment is called a middle strike in military terms. This is the range from which the enemy terrorizes Ukrainians with ballistic strikes and where they keep their air defense systems. The fact that the FPV drones of the fighter with the call sign Cyclone can reach this far is, for now, an exception to the rule. But Alpha has other tools to destroy Russian air defense systems on an industrial scale.
There are systems that we completely wipe out. It's hard to name the figure in dollars, but if we're talking about quantity, they've lost more than 100. Over
100? Well, how many is hundreds? 200? 300? The guy said that after 200, they stopped counting.
Yeah, that's about right.
All of them were destroyed by drones that cost hundreds of times less. And in practice, it can operate at a distance of, say, 100 kilometers.
That's exactly how it works. We load the catapult.
Now the special forces.
Right now, the SBU Special Forces are practicing what's called a middle strike, a strike at medium depth. About 100 kilometers, maybe a bit more. First, a reconnaissance and correction drone takes off, followed by the strike drone.
3215, Mort on Twitter.
Different kamikaze drones are used for different tasks. This one, in appearance, somewhat resembles the Russian Lancet. Tor, Buk, Pantsir, Osa are convincingly burning deep in the enemy's rear. But sometimes it's more important to destroy a radar station than a launcher. It's not as spectacular, but an entire battery becomes blind and helpless.
This means our aviation feels much safer. There are unique operations when, for example, our command gives a direct order to destroy a specific air defense system in a particular area. We carry this out, and after that, airstrikes are launched there.
The strike drone is a one-way trip. The aerial scout returns to its operators. Alpha continues to drain the Russian army's wallet, making the war as expensive as possible for the Kremlin. That's all for today, but very soon on Front News. New exclusive reports from our journalists in the hottest spots of the war obtained so that you know the truth. This was Vladimir Timoshenko with you. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones.